Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, video marketing that converts. How to use storytelling to drive sales. That's what this episode's all about. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Hey, Business Bros, from Hollywood production sets to executive boardrooms, today's guest is a powerhouse creative who turned passion into profit. She's built Emmy-winning media companies, uplifts women leaders, and teaches businesses how to market through storytelling. So please welcome to the show, the one and only Diane Strand. All right, Diane, the party has officially started. Welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, Diane, from Hollywood production sets, award-winning media companies, give me a little background here. How'd you get started in this space?
Well, I always like to say that you can't look forward. You have to look back and connect your dots. And, my dots always revolve around the arts, and they go all the way back to second grade because it was the arts that really got me started into wanting to be an actor way back when. And so I had a little bit of a struggle. Everyone told me I shouldn't even try because I couldn't read. And, that's when my tenacity dropped in. And, if someone tells me I can't do something, I say, watch me. And somehow I figured out how to read or at least audition. And I got the part in the play in second grade. And that's what kept me connected every single year into school because I wanted to be the play. Next thing you know, I guess I did graduate high school, even though that was not 100% sure at the time. But it was the arts that really made that work. And as I was trying to pursue a career in the entertainment industry, that was where things started to really change for me. I started out wanting to be an actor, went up to LA to pursue acting and my career. And my entrepreneurial spirit really kicked in early because I figured, well, the best way to get discovered would be to get me and all my unemployed friends up on a stage and have somebody come in and discover us. So that's what I did. I put together Images and Imagination Children's Theater. We started performing in Hollywood on Theater Row and in hopes of getting discovered. And might not be exactly how it panned out, but yet it kind of did because I found that I liked the producing and the directing and the writing more so than the acting. And that really started that out for me. And I started sharing stories and writing, and I got a screenplay sold. And that was my real true kind of first break into the industry. Didn't quite go as smooth as you would have hoped at that point. They did not make my film. It got shelved. I did not get to go on as the supervising producer. They said I needed a college degree for that. Never wanted to hear that again. So I went back to college, finished my degree in radio, television, and film. And then I came out and started working on shows for Disney and Universal Studios. I worked on Friends and General Hospital and built the high-def control room at Staples Center and really started pursuing the entertainment industry. But things don't always go as planned. So, I had to pivot a little bit here and there. I found out what corporate video was and which was the best thing in the whole wide world. But yet reality television came a calling. And I left Hollywood for entrepreneurship because reality television, it's real. And it's a win-lose culture.
It definitely is. I love their story, though. I mean, when somebody tells you can't do something, that's exactly when you got to, strike out or go at it and just do the thing. I remember I was a kid and I started playing baseball, and I thought it was really cool to wear the catcher's gear. And I told my mom I wanted to be a catcher. She said, "You're too small to do that." Well, that's what I ended up doing for many, many years after that. It was one of those things. Tell me what I can't do. Let me show you. Now, you talked about a lot of different things that you ended up doing that were successful, that kind of were additions to the creativity that you already had, that spark that you already had. But when did it become a profitable venture? When did your passion for you, do you feel that it turned into something where you were like, okay, this could be something that I can
I think
keep
we're having
going
some
with?
internet trouble. You froze on me.
Oh, can you hear me still?
I can hear you now. Yes, and I think you were asking me is when did my passion turn into a purpose or maybe a profit?
Yes. When did your passion turn into a profit?
Well, that's always an up and down road for any entrepreneur as far as that goes. I mean, my passion has always been in the arts and creativity. And of course, I made some profits when I was working in Hollywood. And, that was, that's where that fear comes into place when you're turning into entrepreneurship, because I had to quit fat 6-figure jobs in early 2000, which was a lot of money back in 2000, to then become an entrepreneur and have no guarantee of a paycheck, right? So that was definitely one of those hurdles. And in entrepreneurship, the first 5 years, it was a lot of hard work. And there were definitely some feast to famine moments that we were experiencing in those first 5 years. But that's when you have to dig deep and you have to drive into your community and you have to reset some things. And we did that. There's been like I said, feast to famine moments. Some of the feast moments, covered some of the famine moments. But at the same time, they say if you can make it in business 5 years and make it through that 6th year, then you have something. Mm-hmm. And that was really our tell sign. In 2008, we all know what happened. That was our 5-year mark as entrepreneurs. And we thought we had to dust off the resumes. There's no doubt. My partner in life and business was contemplating selling cars. I was pregnant with our 3rd child and trying to figure out, am I going to have to go back to Hollywood? Is this what it's going to look like? But we did that. We drove into our community. We got creative. The arts, once again, saved us because the arts teach everything. They market, they communicate, they engage, they are inclusive, they teach history. There's so much. And the best thing that they do is they teach grit and determination. Because any artist will tell you got to get gritty and you got to be determined if you're going to succeed. And that's what it did. I took that grit and determination and knocked on doors again and turned it around. And thankfully, after 2008, when we came out of it, I haven't had to look back, and it's been pretty profitable ever since. And there haven't been as many famine moments, so to speak. That's always been better.
Heck yeah, it is. Now, I know there's a lot of creatives out there that want to monetize their talents, but maybe it's a strategy, maybe it's a mindset shift that they might need. What would you say was like the first mindset shift where you kind of decided, okay, I'm going to drop this 6-figure income that I'm doing really well at to go be an entrepreneur? Like who's insane enough to do that? What shifted in your mind to take that risk, bet on yourself?
It was a very quick, swift shift in my mindset that happened. I had come home from, a long day, missing bedtime and bath time of my, then 3-year-old son. And I was venting to my husband, and, he said, well, what if you just quit your job and we opened our own production company and we sold the house? And it really took me about 15 seconds. I went, yeah, let's do that. And we were committed to it. It felt right. It was right. I answered the question. Sometimes if you overthink something too much, I could have talked myself right back into, no, I can't do that. If I would have thought about what about the mortgage payment, or how are we going to table, or how is this going to happen, then my decision would have not have been a gut reaction, and if I would have overthought it, who knows where I would be right now. Where it was a gut reaction. Yes, let's do that. We can make this work. And that was our commitment. There was no other choice. When 2008 happened, there really wasn't another choice. We just had to pivot to figure out how to make it work. And what were we going to do? And how are we going to get creative to get, to get the grit and determination to come back and to make it work? I often say sometimes you have to get hungry again. And I've had to do that several times over the last 22 years. Get hungry, find that passion, let the passion drive it to find the purpose. And then the pathways for the profits, they will follow.
Yeah, and I commend you because you're very brave. I mean, how does the army win the war? They burn the boats behind them, and then they don't have any choice but to move forward. And that's kind of what you did. As it's a gut call for sure. But you could have easily have made that gut call, and then the next day say, I changed my mind. But you stuck it out. You kept going forward to make something of this whole creative idea at the time, right? I mean, nothing was real, nothing was for sure, and yet you still persevered and made it happen. Now, in today's world, there's a lot of companies out there that want to get more buyers, that want to grow their small business, and they're leaning a lot more today into things like video marketing to help kind of convert that prospect into a buyer. Where should a small business start when it comes to marketing? You and your space deals with a lot of creativity. There's all kinds of ideas always floating in the arts. How does a small business owner, maybe who doesn't have that kind of creativity, use some sort of method to help them kind of start converting as they use things like video marketing?
Well, I would say definitely, focus on your community. That is the best thing you can do as a business owner. And whether that's an in-person community by hitting up your chamber, getting involved with your city, going to networking and other organizations that drive workforce development and economic development. I didn't go to the warm, fuzzy organizations. You got to go and really do something that have impact and meaning. I joined workforce development for my county. I got involved with economic development. And then, marketing. Today, everything. You cannot do anything without having some sort of content creation that you're putting out there. So we all have this great tool. It's called a phone. It's in our pocket. That is the best marketing tool you can have. And everybody has it. You just got to put it to work for you. I mean, we spend hours a day scrolling. You need to spend hours a day uploading. That's the different key, whether you're doing a live, whether you're posting a graphic, whether you don't even have to even put an image with it. People will read it. Why don't they have a picture with it? What are they saying here? Right. So that could be something to even change it up. So that's the big thing, is that, that's the creativity aspect. Is to do something different, but be consistent. That's where the creativity is, in the something different. Well, yesterday I used a picture. Today I'm going to use words. Tomorrow I'm going to use music. Switch it up, but be consistent. Always be putting content out there. It's the best tool that we have for free marketing is social media. And those are tools that I didn't have when I started my business. I had to literally go knock on doors and walk from business park to business park.
It's a different time, but I agree with you. The creating content on a regular basis, it is the key factor here. And at the beginning, you're not going to be very good at it. You're not going to like the way you look. You're not going to like the way you sound. You're going to hate the video editing software. You're unfamiliar with all those different things. But the consistency factor is the thing that's going to make you get better and better and better. Now, let me ask you for storytelling advice. If somebody's creating content, they've already made that commitment. They're like, all right, look, I'm going to make some stuff. I'm going to create some stuff, but I want to tell a good story so that it's effective, so that my video content doesn't just kind of fall off the face of the earth. There's actually people paying attention to it because I can hook them in and get them with the story and get them involved. What's some of those key things that somebody can do to their video content or the content they're creating so that they tell a good story while building that?
Well, remember, we do business with people we know, like, and trust. So start with letting your audience get to know you so they can like you, and then they will start to trust you. So you've got to put that in there. So, share. I mean, I don't want to know what you had for dinner last night, but I would like for you to tell me why dinner last night was meaningful. So, those are the two different things. I don't need to see the great plate of food. I can't eat it. I can't reach through the computer screen and taste it. But what did that do for you to have a great dinner last night? Was it with a business partner? Was it with your spouse? Tell me the story that comes up with it. And what did you learn for it? Why are you showing me the picture of food? Is it something that you got out of that food? So as I was enjoying this great meal sitting across the table from my business partner, we came up with a great new product, service, way to meet our customers' needs, way to, so tie your story into your message. Don't just give me a message, or just don't give me a story that doesn't tie into anything. People are way too obsessed with what's going on in their world. And remember, you have to build the relationship so I can know you and like you. But I also need to know how you're going to help me. What problem are you solving? Right? So showing me if you are a restaurant person and you're at a different restaurant and you're eating, tell me what worked and what didn't work and why your place would be different. Tell me, create the story. Don't just go and criticize people, but, tell me the story behind it. Talk from your heart. Let me know who you are. Let me know why. Why are you sharing this with me? And then have a little bit of succinctness to it, so you don't ramble, because nobody's got time for that. So you can be, you can be a little bit more succinct and capture me. Got to lead with a hook. You got to start with a hook. It's like, do you know my waiter made me wait 20 minutes? Okay. Why? And then tell me. But you know what I did in those 20 minutes? I solved the world's problems, right? So, whatever it is, then keep them in there, keep them engaged, talk from your heart, talk from reality.
There are going to be so many times, if you talk from the heart, speaking of rambling, right, where you're going to have ums and hiccups and mistakes. It's a good thing these softwares allow you to start and stop, rewind and edit, and clip stuff out. Now, the fear of making mistakes is always one of those things that prevents people from moving forward, from actually hitting the upload button, right? The post button. They might get behind the camera. They might record some stuff. They might go doing all this editing, and then it sits in a draft folder, never to be posted. That's one of the big mistakes that I see happening with a lot of new creators. What's a mistake that you see entrepreneurs make most often, and how could they fix it?
Well, they let fear. I mean, that's fear. It's like they did all the work, they put it together, and they're like, oh, what are they going to think of me once I post that? It's not perfect, or it's not this. That's all fear. That's fear that is stopping you because you've done the work already, and then you haven't followed through. And you can come up with 1,000,001 reasons. Oh, I was busy. Oh, I forgot, and all this happened. But that is the power of fear that you have to get beyond, because fear will trick you. It will lie to you. Fear's job is to keep you exactly where you are and safe. That is fear. It's great if we're about to drive off a cliff, right?
True.
But, that doesn't always happen. So we have to control fear. So let's go back to that same analogy of driving off a cliff. If it says, don't drive off the cliff, listen to it. But at the same time, if it says, maybe you shouldn't do that yet. We're not quite ready. You didn't get this perfect. We need to do this. And then that puts into, it's not perfect. You're right. You know what? Did you see that weird jump cut in there? Let me see if I can find somebody who can fix that. You know what? Post it anyways, because in reality, nobody cares. That 10 seconds. I mean, and I'm a video producer and I care a lot, and I watch these things, and you can talk to my editors where I'm like, no, fix that, kind of thing. So that does happen when you're there. But at the same time, don't let that stop you. If you can fix it quick, great, fix it and move on. But if you can't, that's fear that's telling you that you're not ready. Always start before you're ready, so you can get going, and trust yourself. There's the 51% rule. You got to trust yourself a little bit more than you don't, so that you can do it. I have I love analogies. It's called pack your own parachute, so it'll open. Those are the things that you have to do. You got to tell fear, in the back seat, I've got the wheel. I get to control the radio. We're going to listen to what I want to listen, and we're going to keep going. We're on this road for the long haul. If you have any comments, whisper.
Yeah. No, and at the end of the day, fear is going to be there. You're always going to feel it. Whether or not you move forward, that's where the courage comes in, right? I mean, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel weird when it's something new and it's something that you haven't done before, but do it anyways. And that's kind of where you acquire that skill. And the next time you're not as nervous and you get a little bit more comfortable and you're a little more confident. And all of a sudden there's people looking at you like, I can't believe you step on the stage and do that. I can't believe you get on video camera and do that. It's just the ability for you to go out and take that action. Now, you as a female leader in business, what does empowerment look like in action? Like when you're actually doing it, and how can you help others do the same?
Well, it's stepping outside your comfort zone. That's how it happens. Whether you're putting yourself out there on social media, you're trying to find stages and presenting, it's your job. And so you have to be putting your message out there. If you're an accountant, you need to be providing tips out there and putting out, ways people can save money. It used to be don't give it away for free, but there are certain things that you should just be telling the world, because you're not making money off those things either. You're going to make more money if they come to you for the bigger problems. Mm-hmm. So you need to let them know the problems that you solve, and you need to share your expertise so people look at you as the expert. That's how you're going to get to be seen, find those stages, get on social media, be on podcasts. It's a visibility game. You got to have your personal brand and you have to be seen. And the more you can be seen, the better. That's why I said, don't worry about that little glitch in your video or that thing that happened, because there is so much content out there. They go by it. They forgot. That's not what they're looking at. And especially if you're not me and you're not the video producer, you don't have to have the perfect video, right? You're the accountant, or you're the baker, or the restaurateur, or whatever it is that your business is. So nobody's judging your restaurant based on the video work that you do. That's where and if you're that worried, that's where, and as you start doing it, you should be hiring professionals so that they can make you look good. That's where that comes from. Start off to where you need to be, have, meet yourself where you're at, but then, grow, and don't compare yourself. You can't compare to where you're at chapter 1 or 2 to someone who's at chapter 5 or 6, or someone like me who's in chapter 20, kind of thing. We're all at different places. Success looks different for everyone. So it's how you are managing that. Are you letting fear manage you, or are you managing it? Are you taking the risks that you need to take, or are you playing it safe? Because no one ever got rich off playing it safe.
Nope.
You can't do that. You have to, it takes money to make money. And the goal should be to build wealth, not build cash flow. Cash flow comes and goes. Money comes and goes. You want to build wealth. You don't need just, keeping that $100 in your cash flow. If that $100 can turn into $200, spend it.
Very, very good advice. Now, you are in a unique business where you have to manage and deal with a lot of people in a creative way. And most entrepreneurs kind of start this game off playing it solo, and they end up staying solo, and which is one of the reasons why they burn out after a while. Building a company has to be built usually with a team for it to be successful and be able to scale at some point. Collaboration is obviously the key here. What's your process for forming partnerships or bringing team members on that actually works?
Well, I always like to do people that, like-minded individuals, so I really find people that, I know that on a personal level that I can communicate with. That is especially if I'm bringing on an employee, we have to be able to talk and communicate in difficult times as well as happy-go-lucky times, because some days are hard and some days are, you're not feeling it, and you might be a little on edge because of stress. And so you need to have team members that can support you in that. That's very important. As you're building, it's interesting. I probably would not 100% build a business the same way I built mine. There's things that I learned along the way, and there are things that have come along with technology, and especially how much smaller the world got since COVID. And now we all do things on Zoom and different ways that we practice business. So like I said, I wouldn't necessarily 100% do it exactly the same way, but I would use the same methodologies in a lot of it, which is I'm going to build partnerships with people who are of value. Those are, we build partnerships and collaborations off of valued relationships. And, that is what I have found to be the most important thing in entrepreneurship, is to build relationships of value, because you never know when you're going to need them. You might think in a moment, oh, we don't have anything that we can work on. I'm not making money off of you. You're not making money off of me. But times change. That's why you have to start with relationships of value. If you're only looking for relationships for business, and if we can't do business at the moment, you don't waste your time, so to speak, then that's not a relationship of value, and you're not going to be in it for the long haul.
It's funny. I was listening to a Joe Rogan interview the other day, and he was talking about how he's building, I guess, a comedy store over in Texas since he moved from the LA area. And he was saying that his objective has always been to be able to hang out with his friends and have a good time and laugh. And they just happen to build their business around that they have a lifestyle that they want, and they build a business around that lifestyle. And to hear it laid out like that from someone who's really successful, it makes sense. And it kind of goes parallel with what you're saying. And, as we head towards the end of our time here, building a team, talking to people who are like-minded, who want to move forward. How do you help clients if they go to your website? How can they get a hold of you so that they can find people who maybe are interested in working with you, to learn from you, to be a part of that same circle and mindset?
Absolutely. Well, I'm easy to find all over social media at Diane Strand. You can find me on every platform that kind of exists with Diane Strand. And then you can also go to hashtag JDS Family, which is going to pull up all of our JDS, from the video and media production company to our actors studio to our nonprofit Creative Academy. I have a mission. It's moving the arts across America. And with our mission, we're having an event coming up in August 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. It is going to show you how you can be a part of moving the arts across America, whether that's moving it into your business because you need more creativity to be able to leverage, market, and scale. You're looking for a business in a box. You are creative and you need to launch or leverage. We can help you do that. We have lots of different activities and events that go on. Just start a conversation. That's the best way to go. Whether you reach out to me on social media, you go to artsacrossamerica.org, or my production company, which is scrolling across the bottom, reach out and have a conversation. That's how relationships are built, and build a relationship of value with me. And I'm sure we can find a way to help leverage and market you, as well as get you be seen more.
Those relationships are important. Yeah, they're business related, but ultimately you want to work with people who end up becoming friends. And speaking of friends, you mentioned it earlier. So my last question to you, what was it like being on the show that when I was growing up, I was probably middle school, high school times, and I was watching every Thursday, Friends came on. What was it like being on that set?
Yeah, sorry, you froze there, but I got what you were intending. Working on Friends was amazing, of course. I only worked there for one season. It was season 3, and I moved pretty quickly through. I came in as a production assistant, so I started with the old line. I got people's coffee. I brought the lunch. I picked up dry cleaning. I did that, but I was a little older. I'd come out of college. I was that's where I started. By the end of the season, I was line producing. So, I went from production assistant to production coordinator to line producer. And I didn't work one-to-one with the cast, everyone, I did get to meet them and talk to them and all of those great things. They're all wonderful people, but I worked in the production office and I did a lot of budgeting and a lot of numbers and figuring out, how to be able to pay. That was the first year that all the actors went to $1 million each a year. So that was the big topic of conversation, how an episode, not a year, $1 million an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had to do a lot of budgeting around that because that changed a lot of things. But, they're great people. I learned so much, working with Bright Kaufman and Crane, that was the production company. And from, learning producing to even the writing side of things, it was the best training ground I could have been in.
What an amazing experience. Well, Diane, thank you very much for being on the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, jds-productions.com. jds-productions.com is Diane's website. You can also find her on social at Diane Strand. Take a look, have a conversation. Let's see where it takes you. That first action step is what's absolutely necessary. Take that step, even if it's just creating content, even if it's just starting the conversation, start there and start taking action. Diane, thank you very much for being on the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started